is Rosa, and I am an architectural designer and general contractor. And I decided to create this podcast called Surviving Your ADU because I think it's very important in this time to help a lot of people out there that want to do their ADU. And I want to provide information that will make their project a lot easier. Like I say, my name is Rosa. I am a general contractor and architectural designer. I went to architecture school at Cal Poly Pomona and graduated with a bachelor's degree in architecture. And I've been working in architecture for 23 years, and I've been managing construction projects for 17 years. And why this podcast and why surviving your ADU? Building from the ground up, it's something complex and something that a lot of people did not do before because it takes a lot to build from the ground up. And usually people that build their single family home was people that had a higher income, that had the money to hire an architect, a civil engineer, a structural engineer, and everything that is needed to prepare a lot for a single family home. And that was something that not a lot of people was able to do before. But with the changing of the law and allowing Californians to build a second unit in their lot, the potential to become a builder or to build your ADU from the ground up change exponentially, right? Now, basically, every single homeowner in California can build an ADU and from the ground up, either that or convert their garage into an ADU. And with all these changes, it also came a lot of people that started to take advantage of people that didn't know how to do this process. And that's where I want to come in. I want to help you to be informed, to be able to build your ADU with the least amount of problems as possible. So this ADU is for you. The person that wants to build an ADU and want to do it with confidence, want to be informed, and want to know as much information as possible before contracting a designer to do your ADU or contracting with a contractor to build the ADU. So this podcast is for you, is to give you the information, is to make your life hopefully a lot easier. And for me, the design process and the construction process is something that is enjoyable. And it's, yes, it is complex and sometimes gives people headaches, but I think that creating something and watching it build or even building it yourself at some point, it's a very rewarding process. And it's something that you will have for you and your family, and it will help you to create income or to create space for family members or whatever it is that you want to do with your ADU. So that is the reason that I'm creating this podcast. So as an experienced contractor, one of the things that I get a lot is, well, the person that I trusted that was going to build my ADU basically took advantage of me. I paid and my ADU is never complete. That is a very typical conversation that I have with a lot of people that have started their ADUs. One, because like I said, a lot of people is trying to take advantage of people that don't know how to do or how to go about doing the ADU. They don't know how the construction process work, and they don't know, you know, how to go about it once the design is done, once the permit is issued, how to pay the contractor, right? That's one of the things that we're going to talk about this in this podcast as well. But let's start with the plans, right? So I don't have an issue with drafters or designers doing the plans for an ADU, but I do have an issue with people that are taking advantage and overcharging for a design. For example, I've talked to people that paid $20,000 for the design of their ADU. $20,000 is a lot of money. And I mean, it depends on who you contract. If you contract an architect that has a lot of experience, that, is very well known for their designs, maybe $20,000 is not a lot of money to pay for your ADU design. But if you're paid a drafter $20,000 to do your plans, then I would say that it is a little bit on the expensive side. The price range for plans, as I discussed with people, is anywhere between about $5,000 to like $12,000. It depends on the size of your project, and it also depends on the complexity of your job site. So I don't want to say, you should pay between this and that, and that's it. No, I understand that there's a lot of variables that go into designing a project. So I'm not going to give you a price. I'm just going to say that you need to make sure that the person that you are selecting to design your ADU is someone that knows the codes, that knows, the basic principles of design, and that is not going to take 12 months to get you approval for your ADU. Although I will say, it depends from city to city and from county to county. I've done ADUs in County of LA where it took me about 8 months to get a project approved. And I've done ADUs for another city where it just takes me, a week or even an over-the-counter review. So those things vary from cities to city and from county to county. But to have a project take, 9 to 12 months to get permitted, I would say it's on the longer side of this main process. So I would consider that as well. So I think that is the difference between designers and drafters, right? Or architectural designers or architects and drafters. The experience of knowing how to go about the city, how to lay out the plan, and we'll talk about design and layouts later on in the podcast, because a lot of people ask me, sometimes I get plans from people to give them a price for their ADU. And there's been about 3 times where I just, let the client know that I cannot give them a price based on the drawings that they sent me. And they don't understand it. They're like, why not? And I'm like, well, there's plans that are done to get a permit, and then there's plans that are done to get constructed. So there is a difference between those two. And And yeah, it is a little bit hard for people to hear that when they paid, $12,000 for plans, and now a contractor is telling them that they cannot give them a price with those drawings. It is hard for people to understand and believe, right, that what they're hearing is correct. Um, so I'm going to tell you a story. I got an email from a prospective client letting me know that they had submitted their plans to the city, and that the city of Santa Ana, and that they wanted me to give them a price. So they sent me the drawings, and I said, okay, that's fine. I had a schedule to go to their house. And look in their garage, because they're converting their garage into an ADU. And I printed the plans. I looked at the plans before I went to their house. And when I got there, I was looking at the garage, and I was looking at the drawings, and the information in the drawings was not at all what the existing condition of their garage was. And I asked them, I said, are you sure these are your plans? And they're like, yes, these are our plans. They were submitted to the city, and we're hopefully going to get a permit within the next month. And I said, you're not going to get a permit with these plans. And if you get a permit with these plans for your project, you're going to have an issue later on, because these drawings do not reflect at all the existing condition of your garage. So when you do the demolition and you're going to start the construction, most likely the inspector is going to put that project on hold, and it's going to ask you to modify the plans to provide the information that is the existing condition of your garage, and your project is going to be completely different. So, the client asked me, like, what do you mean? What do you mean this is not our garage? Like, the plans have our address in it, and the outline is more or less the outline of our house. So how can this not be the plans for our house, for ADU? And I started to explain to them the details and the drawing, and how they had an attic in their garage in the drawings, and they didn't have an attic in their existing garage. And it was the 1950s house, like a very like one of those mid-century roof designs that is very flat, so you don't have an attic. You basically have a cathedral ceiling, and that's it. You don't have an attic space, and their walls were very low, so there was no way that you could have an attic space in their garage, and that was going to be an issue, because Title 24 needed to change to address that existing condition. And basically I went point by point on the things that they needed to change to make sure that the existing conditions of their garage reflect the plans they were submitting to the city for the permit. So they were very surprised that their plans did not match their garage. And they were very disappointed, because they had already waited for about 9 months to get the plans done to submit to the city. So they were hoping that they were going to get a permit. So she said, well, you know what, once we hear back from the city, we'll let you know what the city say. And we're going to talk to our designer as well to address these comments. And when they got the comments from the city, it was exactly the comments that I had told them about, and the reason that I thought they were not going to get a permit. And yeah, you would be surprised the amount of times that I get drawings where the existing conditions are not addressed in their plans. So that is a problem that needs to be dealt with when you hire someone to do your plans. I think you need to get references. You need to get drawing samples so that you can see the quality of their drawings. And hey, if you have any questions of what should a set of plans have, just let me know. You're welcome to send me any questions, or even send me, a sample of the other person, of the designer's plans, and I can give you an honest opinion. I'm not here to, be critical of other designers or other contractors. That's not the purpose. I think my purpose is to help you, the homeowner, to make the best decision for you and not be in a place where you spend a lot of money and your plans do not reflect what your project should be about, right? Any questions you have, you may go to my website, rosaandcompany.com, and send me any questions, or send me any plans where you want me to review them or give you an honest opinion. I would do that, no problem. I think this podcast is, my hope is to be able to help you, to have someone along the way to give you an honest opinion, because I don't have the point is not to criticize other people. My point is to make sure that you are getting the information that you need. That is my goal with this ADU, is to open up a conversation with you, the client, or the person that's going to do the ADU, and have as much information as possible to be able to make a decision where you're going to be set in the best course to finish your ADU. So like I said, you can go to my website, rosaandcompany.com, and there is a place there where you can send me an email and request information, and I will make sure that I will reply to your email. Believe me, I do this every day, so I always go through my emails from the website and make sure that I reply to any questions people send me. So that is a line of conversation between you and me. Okay. So talking about plans, like I said, what is the difference between plans that are made for construction and plans that are made to get a permit? I've seen plans where the amount of information and details for construction is very minimal, right? It's very minimal information, but it has a lot of notes and very specific notes, right? If you just put this note here that is required by the plan checker, they just check their box and you have the information in your plans and it's good to go. But in reality, it doesn't really tell you how that note serves the contractor to be able to build it in a way that will comply with code, right? So those are two separate things. And I think I get a lot of plans where there is a lot of notes, and those notes are good because, yes, those are required to get a permit, but it doesn't connect to any detail or any other information in the plan that will let the contractor know, hey, you need to make sure that it needs to have a dust to down sensor and also a motion sensor. So you have that in a list of notes, but if you don't have that note specifically on your exterior elevation where you have your light fixture or in your schedule for light fixtures and all that, that may be an issue when you get your final because the inspector noticed that you don't have both sensors in that light fixture. And, little things like that is what, make, and if you don't have an experienced contractor, then that's another thing that the contractor is going to want to charge you more at the end because he needed to switch, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 lights because that node wasn't available, you know, directly related to a fixture in your drawings. So things like that are very specific. And like that, there's a whole list of things that I can tell you that need to be related to the plan in construction and not just as a note somewhere in the plans where the contractor need to read every single note. And then, at the end, it's like so much information that you may not be able to remember that. So it's a complex process, but I think when the designer is very specific and very explicit on the way that everything is conveyed in the drawings, then it makes life easier for everybody, so that's one of the differences between, plans for design and get a permit, and then plans to get a permit and also construction. And that's just one little specific, example of a whole list of things that are not explicitly specified in the drawings. So one of the other things that I've been informed lately, or probably about a year ago, this is when I started to get a lot of people asking me questions about, how do I make my contractor come back to my job site? And I started to notice that I was getting that question a lot. And I talked to a few people. One of them, it's, I think, the worst one of about 6 people that I talked about this with them. The contractor came, their project is they're doing a master suite addition to their house, and then they're converting their garage into an ADU. So their contract was for a total of $196,000. And everything was going well. The contractor was there all the time. They were doing good progress in the construction. And the contractor, by the time they had framing, had charged them 90% of the total construction cost. And now the contractor wasn't coming back. They stopped their project for 4 months, and they didn't know how to make their contractor come back. And they called me and they asked me, if you were to continue with this project, how much would you charge us? Well, unfortunately, when I gave them the price based on the work that needed to be completed, my price was $140,000, which, if they had already paid 90% of the $196,000, that was like basically paying all over again for work that they had already paid for. So what I've talking to other people about these contractors and, trying to understand what was going on, what I found out was that a lot of contractors were giving very low prices for the projects just so they can get the projects. And then they had about 10 to 20 projects going on at the same time. And what's happened is that they were treating this as sort of like a pyramid scheme, right? Where the first project will get billed with the money from the other projects in the bottom. And then as that happened, more and more people were getting scammed now because their projects were being started but not completed. And it was bad because I went to see people that lived in Los Angeles County, San Diego County, and Riverside County. So it wasn't specific to one area. Is that these contractors were doing this kind of work in everywhere. And I started getting concerned because how contractors are invoicing in work that hasn't been done. So that's another thing that we're going to talk about in this podcast. How do you pay your contractor? But I'm just going to say this now. If you have a contractor that tells you your project is going to cost you $200,000, as an example, and I'm going to ask you for 3 payments for your project. So before I start to get your project started, I need you to pay me $80,000 to start. By the time I start the framing, I want you to pay me the second payment of another $80,000. And then when right before we do the final inspection, we're going to ask you for another $40,000. Then, then we're done. And that's not a way to pay for a construction project. You should be paying for work that has been completed and material that's on site. If contractors are making you pay any other way, I would not contract with them. I would look for someone else that is able to give me a schedule of payments based on their work, a schedule for the work, and an itemized price list, so that you know that the work that they're being done is exactly what you're paying for. And there's no questions about it from the contractor or from the client. And this actually protects both the client and the contractor. Why? Because as a client, you don't want to overpay for work that has not been done or material that is not on your site. And as a contractor, you don't want to get paid for things that are not done, because if something happens and you spend that money, then you're going to have to come back and finish, or you're going to get sued to finish and you don't have the money anymore. So, paying for work that is completed and material that's on site protects both the client and the general contractor. So, that is another reason I'm doing this ADU podcast, because sometimes when I tell people I'm a contractor, they're like, oof, it's like, it's a bad connotation to be a contractor. But I say, no, not if you do it right, not if you do it respectfully, because a lot of people tell me, well, like the other side of the story is the contractors say, well, I did this whole project and I never got paid, right? That's the other side of the story. So that's why I said, when you do an itemized price and you invoice for work that is being done and material that's on site, and you do it, in ways that you're not basically doing the work and then not getting paid for it, and basically you're being that as a contractor, you're not financing the project for your client, right? So that is the reason that I say invoicing for work that has been done and material that's on site protects both the client and the contractor, and is the best way to go about it. Like I told my ADU clients, they said usually the time frame for an ADU, it's anywhere between 3 to 4 months. These are smaller projects. It shouldn't take that long to build, unless there's like something specific where the complexity of the project is difficult. But typically it's about that 3 to 4 months. I tell them, if I invoice you every month, uh, I'm going to be financing your project, and we don't want to be in that situation. So I usually invoice weekly or bi-weekly, depending on the price of the project and depending on the work that has been done. And that's something that we agree at the beginning. And because we talk about this when I do a contract with the client, I'm very, very clear on the payment schedule, so that it doesn't become, it's not a surprise for any of us, and we both know what we're getting ourselves into. And that's something that needs to be talked about, and everybody should know what's expected. So what is, if you're asking me, so what is the Rosa and Company way, right? The Rosa and Company way is to be very communicate. We communicate with our clients. We want to have, expectations from the beginning to end, fulfilled. If I tell you it's going to take me 3 months to submit to the city, I want to make sure that it's going to be 3 months to submit to the city. If I tell you it's going to be 2 months or 5 weeks or 6 weeks, I want to make sure that I'm able to make those deadlines, right? If I tell you this is the contract for construction, and I telling you is going to be, my invoicing is going to be every week or every other week, then that way the client knows that they have the money available for that, because also we don't want to finance the client's project. So I think when you talk about these things from the beginning, I think there's less surprises down the road, and it works better, and it's a better relationship between the client and the contractor, right? I'm in this field because I really enjoy designing and I really enjoy constructing, because when I graduated from architecture school, I started working for a very small architecture company in Palm Springs, where I was told, you're not going to be making a lot of money in the beginning, but we're going to teach you and we're going to bring you to the job site. And that was like a game changer for me. And I think that's the difference between designers and then designers that are very knowledgeable about construction. One, it makes you a better designer because you know exactly how things are built, and then you're able to design better for those, for a lot of things, right? For example, if a client comes and tells me, I want to build this ADU, but my budget is, $100,000. Can you do it? And I would be like, well, it's going to be pretty tight, but yes, it can be done. Or from the beginning, I would say, no, that's an unrealistic number, right? Because I did that for a client. He came and said, can you do it for me? And all I have is $115,000. Can you do it with that amount of money? And I said, yes, it's doable. But then he decided to contract the plans with someone else because they were going to do it for less money, and he wanted to save a few $1,000s. So when he came back and gave me the plans to give them the price for construction, then the price for construction was $150,000. And he was like, but you told me it could be done for $115,000. I said, yes, but I'm giving you the price for the plans that you're giving me. If I know as a contractor that you have $115,000, I'm going to design for $115,000, right? So that's another thing that you need to think about when someone tells you, yes, it's doable, or no, it's not doable. Ask them why. What would you do to make sure that is that much money? And if you're having someone tell you, yes, it's doable to do it, then have that person be responsible from beginning to end, because then there's only one person involved, and that person knew from beginning to end that was your budget. And then if at the end the price changes, then you only have one responsible person instead of, having a second person do something that wasn't correct or that did not quantify your expectations of budget in the design. So I think that is our podcast for today. I think I went a little bit in depth on the reason to have this ADU podcast. I hope that you come back and listen to us. And like I say, this is a two-way conversation. You can go to the website, rosaandcompany.com, and send us a message, send us a question or whatever it is that you want to discuss. And I will make sure that I get back to you. Again, this is Rosa, your host, and I hope that this information was helpful to you in your project. Thank you.